Truth Social.
Mr. Reagan.
Go to truthsocial.com, sign up. In a few weeks, we're going to start beta testing a website where you can go and have an open dialogue, where you can go and express your opinions. By the way, on both sides, Seb, not just one way. We don't want just a conservative voice box. We want everyone to be able to do that, but we want people to be able to communicate equally. All of these things that all of our people have experienced. If you're pro-life, if you're pro-Second Amendment, if you're pro-First Amendment in this country, if your opinions don't align with those of big tech and the oligarchs there, you're shut down. We've seen it. It only goes one way, Seb. So they always said, well, if you don't like it, start your own. So my father did that. He signed a definitive merger agreement yesterday to create what will be the Trump Media and Technology Group, and ultimately Truth Social.
A lot of people on Twitter and on my YouTube channel have been asking me if I know anything about Truth Social. No, I do not have any inside information, but I did go ahead, a bunch of news reports on it, went to the app store, and I looked through the description and everything like that, and so I do have a little bit of information on it. And before I get into it, this is my basic take. I love it. I love it. I think it's going to be great. It's essentially, from what I can see, it looks like it's a very sort of basic clone of Twitter. It seems to me to be just an alternative to Twitter that essentially does the same thing as Twitter does. What are the points of difference? I think, one, you're probably not going to be able to post porn on the site, which I think is a nice difference from Twitter. And then also, I don't think they're going to ban people. I think that's been made clear by what they've posted so far in the media that they've produced to market the site, or the app, I should say. But there's a couple reasons why I think that this one's going to do well, because we've had Gab, we've had Parler, and those kind of, and then kind of failed, which was really sad. But I think that there's a couple reasons why Truth is actually going to end up doing really well. Will it beat Twitter? I don't know. I'm hesitant to speculate about that, but I can tell you this, I do think it will be successful, and it's definitely a site that I'm going to be shifting over to. I'm still probably going to use Twitter for a while, and that actually leads me to a suggestion I have for those developing this app, but I'll get to that a little bit later in the video. First, of course, I have to sell you something. Now, you've heard of inflation. You've probably heard of stagflation, but have you heard of shrinkflation? Yeah, shrinkflation. That is actually a thing. Now, this is where your candy bar or your burger or your orange juice gets smaller, but the price stays the same. It's sometimes difficult to notice these things because the packaging often remains the same size. But this happens all the time. It's happening everywhere right now. But the government insists that inflation is under control and that it's just temporary. But what do you think? Do you trust that this administration has anything under control? Exactly. But you know what? Noble Gold is ahead of the game here. They know that with a precious metals IRA, you can hedge against these rising prices, that you can retire without worrying about it. You'll keep up with the inflation that the folks in Washington are trying to pretend doesn't exist. And this month, to thank you and to get your precious metals project off to a flying start, Noble Gold is giving away this 5-ounce solid silver America the Beautiful bullion coin with every qualifying IRA and 401 rollover. This one is the Idaho Wilderness. Fantastic company. And in fact, somebody wrote in the comments the other day, they wrote, your Noble Gold advertisements are great. I invested with them, and he's very happy. So that's great. And if you want to invest too, go to noblegoldinvestments.com or call them at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. All right, so let's look at the media that Truth Social has put forward so far. They got their logo, which is a little bit like T for Trump, right? T for Trump, T for Truth. They pretend that a lot of what Trump says on social media was misinformation or somehow deceptive or something like that. It wasn't, right? They would lie and they would say, Trump's lying about that. And they would turn out to be true, right? For instance, the Hunter Biden laptop, totally true. The Russian collusion stuff, Trump was saying that this is a witch hunt. And then people on social media would say, no, that's a lie. This isn't a witch hunt. This is the genuine. What do they say about Ukraine specifically? They said it was a quid pro quo. There was no quid pro quo. It was all BS. All right, let's have a look here. They have their logo, Truth Social. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty clean. Looks pretty nice. They have a nice design here, I would say. I'm a fan of this design. It's very, very similar to Twitter, but I think it's a little bit more clean than Twitter. I think it looks a little bit better. They've got this profile of this guy, Jack's Beard. Jack's Beard is obviously, they're making fun of Jack Dorsey, right? They're making fun of Jack Dorsey. And I think Jack Dorsey on Twitter is @Jack. They've got @Jack here. But then under that, some of the posts are just sort of typical posts from typical random people. Rick James says, "What's your favorite place in the world? You won't believe how beautiful Jamaica is." Then Chevy Trucks writes, "The Chevy Avalanche is the mullet of trucks, but it sure is fun at a party," right? So they're just presenting typical tweets that you might find. Variety magazine. Variety is, of course, a very left-wing Hollywood magazine. They call it one of the trades. The Hollywood Reporter and Variety are considered the trade magazines, and they're about Hollywood. This is about Christopher Nolan is leaving Warner Brothers for the first time in 19 years to make his new movie. Then we've got AJC, which I don't know what that is, talking about something happening in Georgia, local news network, I guess, newspaper maybe. And then they got a Fox News tweet. They got TechCrunch. They've got New York Times. So they're trying to indicate that all are welcome here. Left and right are both welcome in equal measure onto this platform. And then they've got this Jack guy talking to someone named Jane, who is this sort of fictional employee of his, and he writes, "Hey Jane, can you please have our moderation team take down that account and its posts?" And then Jane writes back, "Jack, are you sure you want to do that? I mean, it's a pretty big deal censoring that content, kind of an overreach, right?" And he writes back, "Just take it down." So this is a kind of a dig at Twitter. They're making fun of Twitter. Now, here's the thing, and they've got a big thing from Chevy Trucks here, so I don't know if Chevy Trucks is already on board or what's up with that, but it looks nice, it looks cool, it looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait to use the site. I will totally be on there all the time, but I do see a little bit of potential issues, and here's why I'm so excited about the site. Because we've seen success with Parler before Amazon said, "We're shutting you down," and they destroyed them. We've seen a little bit of success with some of the other sites. A lot of these sites do get a lot of traffic for one reason and one reason only. They promise not to censor speech, and I think that that's actually really critical. That's something that a lot of people really do care about, both on the left and the right. Now in America, this affects the right more than the left. So you need a place for people on the right to go, and they feel like they're using a site that cares about the integrity of that belief that free speech matters and that every voice should be heard. And so a lot of us are probably going to try to shift over to this site. But this site has an advantage that the previous apps, the previous sites does not have, and that is that it is endorsed by Donald Trump. But more than endorsed, it's Donald Trump's app, and he's going to be on it all the time. So anybody who's a fan of Donald Trump, who wants to stand up for the rights of that man to be able to express himself on social media, we're all going to shift over to this site. A lot of people had some hesitation moving over to Parler, some hesitation moved to Gab. There were rumors, people heard, well, Trump might join this, Trump might join that, and that got people excited, and some people joined specifically because they thought Trump was going to join some of these other sites. When Trump didn't really join any of these other sites, they lost popularity. So Trump is such a big draw. So many people are going to shift over to these sites. Even if they don't use them as their primary social media, they're going to shift over. One thing that's a little bit funny about Twitter is that Twitter is really a social media site for famous people. I mean, if you are famous or you're fans of somebody famous, and you want to see what they have to say, what their thoughts are on a given day, you're going to sign up for Twitter. Twitter is not a place for you to chit-chat with your buddies from work or something like that. You'd use Facebook maybe for that, or Instagram or something. You wouldn't use Twitter for that. Twitter is really to interact with public figures. And occasionally somebody can become a public figure by using Twitter if they become popular enough on Twitter. So you do have some Twitter celebrities. But for the most part, people go there to check up on Kim Kardashian or Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whomever it is that they like. Okay, nobody likes Joe Biden. Who am I fooling? But most people are there to talk with or interact with or to get the thoughts of their favorite celebrities. And the problem with this Truth app is that you will not have that aspect quite as much because you're just not going to have a lot of Hollywood celebrities. You're not going to have the pantheon of stars and famous people and public figures that you get on Twitter. You're not going to get that with Donald Trump's site. Now, will a lot of the more successful, famous conservative folks in the world join Truth? Yeah, I think so. So it'll primarily be a conservative site, almost for sure, for quite some time. Now, my hope is that you're going to get people joining the site from maybe other countries, maybe people who are totally apolitical, have nothing to do with politics. They just find a community there on Truth. And I would like to say that if you're somebody who would like to be a Twitter celebrity, somebody who gets 100,000 followers or more on Twitter, which I don't have, by the way, I only have about 20, but then again, I think it's probably likely that Twitter suppresses my growth on that. But if you're somebody who wants to get a big following on Twitter and has tried to for a long time and hasn't really been able to, this might be your chance, because you might be starting out with truth where there's maybe a smaller pool of people, and as truth grows, your profile might be recommended more because it's a newer site. I would highly suggest, if you want to interact with a lot of people in a community on social media like Twitter, but it's not really working for you on Twitter, I would suggest going to Truth. Now, in doing my research for this video, I watched a lot of news reports about Trump's new social media site or app or whatever you want to call it. And I have to say, a lot of people on the left are losing their minds. Trevor Noah, on his show, he went over this massive diet trying to make jokes about how awful Trump is. Trump's trying to take over the world, so he shouldn't have his own social media site. Ha ha ha, it's so funny. It was really, there was nothing, it wasn't a moment where I thought it was even mildly amusing. It was really almost embarrassing to watch. But so far, this to me has been the most ridiculous video I've seen. This is from the show The Last Word. I don't know who this Lex Luthor-looking guy is, but I forget his name. I'm sure I've heard it before. But anyway, let's listen to what these jokers have to say. Bring two leftists on a show hosted by a leftist to talk about conservatives. So let's hear what they have to say.
Roger, it never leaves me that you have said that you believe social media is incompatible with democracy, or at least social media the way we have it today. I think there are a lot of people watching this show who think Donald Trump is incompatible with democracy, and now the two have paired up.
Well, Ali, they're perfectly made for each other. If you think about what Facebook in particular did, they connected 3 billion people on one network with no barriers. And then they enabled advertisers to target literally anyone individually with perfect data. The result was something that transformed the world of scammers and extremists. They can recruit their marks and then fleece them or radicalize them on Facebook at will.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what you guys think of when you think of social media, right? You think of a den of thieves reaching out and conning everyone. We've all been conned on social media, right? I mean, that's the big problem with social media. Well, what is it? What the hell is this guy talking about? He's talking about something I don't recognize. Are there scammers on social media? I'm sure that there are. I've never been targeted. I've never been. I mean, what he's talking about is something that's amazing, and he's referring to it as if it's awful. He says places where people are free to say whatever they want. Oh my, what? That's terrible. That's a terrible thing. People could just say whatever unfettered. That's ridiculous. The host, of course, says that Trump is incompatible with democracy. I mean, it's strange to me, the expressions that these leftists come up with, because there's nothing, that's a completely and utterly unclear expression. Incompatible with democracy. What the hell does that mean? What do you mean, dude? You just say he's incompatible with democracy. Well, that's like saying Donald Trump is a bad businessman. He's an unsuccessful person. It's like, okay, well, he's a billionaire. His businesses have been incredibly successful. He ran for president and won. What the hell are you talking about? Like, what is your definition of success? Well, what is it? How could you possibly express that idea in any way that makes any sense at all? I mean, to say that Donald Trump is incompatible with democracy, I mean, he won a presidential election via democratic process. I don't understand what the hell he's talking about. I mean, I'm sure that he has some kind of a reasoning in his crazy mind, but then this guy sort of casting this is bizarre. I feel like leftist media sells their ideas in the same way that infomercials used to do in the 1990s. Remember these infomercials where they'd be like, oh, don't you hate it when you're drinking out of a cup and it spills all over yourself? Well, we've invented the sippy cup. And people go, oh yeah, I sometimes spill when I'm drinking. I should always drink out of a sippy cup, right? Well, okay, you've invented a problem. Maybe it's a real problem. Maybe it's just something you've sort of hyped up that's not a real problem at all. And then you've sold a crappy product to people based on their thought that, oh yeah, maybe this is a problem that I need to solve. Like, have you ever tried sleeping under a blanket and you can't find your way out? Well, now we've got a blanket with arms. Never again try to figure out how to get your arms out of a blanket because they're already out. You know, they invent a problem that either doesn't exist or it's an insignificant problem. Sometimes infomercials solve real problems, but most of the time they're insignificant problems or problems that don't need to be solved. I've heard of people buying, I've never done this, but I've heard of people buying these kitchen products from infomercials where it's like, buy an egg slicer, and then they buy the egg slicer and they realize it's really hell to clean up, and it's much easier just to get a knife and go and slice the egg up. So there's some products that are just overly complicate your life. You know, life would have been simpler if you never bought the dang thing. I feel like that is what Democrats do. They pretend that there's a problem. Certainly there are people on social media who try to scam people, for sure. But is that really the hallmark of social media? Wouldn't everybody just stop using it if the only benefit from social media is getting robbed? Obviously, social media is more than just a a den of thieves scamming you all the time. What this guy's talking about doesn't exist. Does social media have problems? Of course. But the problems come from regulation. The problems don't come from the freedoms we have to speak freely. Well, let's keep listening to what this idiot says, and I'll comment again.
And Facebook did a lot of things to empower them. And this was hugely important for Trump. He used Facebook to suppress votes in 2016. He used social media to radicalize MAGA and then enrich himself from them.
Suppress votes in 2016. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. I mean, you have this accusation all the time. How do you use social media to suppress votes? I don't even understand that. I genuinely don't understand what the hell this guy's talking about. I'm sure he has some kind of evidence, which is probably like an editorial from a newspaper somewhere where somebody speculated that in some way Trump stopped people from voting by tweeting. Or something. I don't know where this guy's going, but this is the kind of stuff that you digest when you watch MSNBC. You got to realize, folks, most of the people watching my show here, they probably don't watch MSNBC. They don't have no idea who this guy is. You don't necessarily hear all of the propaganda that the left hears. This is the propaganda that the left hears. They hear the propaganda that Donald Trump suppressed votes in 2016 by using social media. Obviously, that is a lie. Right? But people are hearing it from MSNBC, from somebody that they think that looks like some kind of college professor with heavy metal posters in the back. None of the stuff that he just said was true. January 6th was not an insurrection. Nobody thinks it was. Nobody's been charged with anything like that. When they talk about the big lie is supposed to be the idea that this is what the left has now defined the big lie as, right? Because the big lie used to be something, just basically any outrageous lie that people believe because they think, well, nobody in authority would tell them a lie so ridiculous. That's the concept of the big lie. But the left has redefined it to specifically mean the idea the 2020 election was perhaps in some ways fraudulent. Maybe there was not the perfect election that the left wants you to believe, because people on the right consider that some things were suspicious. Maybe the election wasn't as perfect as they claim. They say that is a big lie. Biden won fair and square. It was a perfect election. And if you don't believe it, you believe the big lie, right? That's what they tell people, shows like this. But actually, I think there's a much bigger lie, which is that there was any kind of violent insurrection, anything like that on January 6th. I think that is a massive lie, because for a few reasons. But obviously, we've known from news reports, we've known from footage we've seen ourselves that the protesters were mainly just people just walking casually through a building. And everybody who died that day died of something completely unrelated to what the protesters were doing. And one person was a protester, as we all know, and was killed by a Capitol Police officer who has gone unpunished to this day. But I digress. Let's listen to the rest of what this nonsense that this guy has to spew here.
He undermined the country's response to COVID. He tried to suppress votes again in 2020 and then organized Stop the Steal, which led to the insurrection. And the latest scam is his media company.
And why is this a scam? Exactly. Trump produces a product that people want. You know, we want a social media site that we can use that doesn't censor us as conservatives. That's something I want. Where's the scam? Where's the scam, buddy?
Having done absolutely nothing with a shell inside of it,
Yep.
It may turn out to be dangerous.
It may turn out to be, you kind of cut out there, but it may turn out to be dangerous. Of course, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a very dangerous social media site.
Let's talk about that, Clint. You and Roger come from different places on this, but you both arrived at very similar conclusions, and that is unfettered social media can be subject to being a distributing mechanism for disinformation and misinformation. Did this new development of Donald Trump pairing up or developing a social media company alarm you?
It alarms me, but it's completely expected. I think for any campaign, and that's what this is, it's a campaign. And for any campaign, you ultimately want to bring your users and close their minds by bringing them to an app of your own design.
No. That is what leftists want. Leftists want to bring users in to a closed space. That's why you always hear on the news, like they'll tell you don't watch Fox, don't listen to the right, and they refuse to bring conservatives onto their shows because they don't want you to get the other perspective. They want that enclosed space. They want to close your mind. Exactly what this guy said is true of leftists. Note that a leftist is making the claim. This is exactly what he wants, he says. He wants people's minds to be closed so they only believe what you tell them. This is not the perspective of any conservative I have ever met. No conservatives in power I've talked to think this way. No conservatives in media I've talked to think this way. We all say go everywhere else and listen to whatever other media you want to listen to and make sure you know what the other side is saying. I will say this, I have actually kind of stopped watching left-wing news as much as I used to. I used to watch a lot of left-wing news, but what I found is that it's become so unbelievably predictable that I don't need to watch it that much. I mean, I just need to catch it occasionally to kind of keep up to what the new talking points are. But for the most part, I know exactly what they're going to say. I don't think there's really any value, at least for me, there's really no value at all in watching the left-wing media. But I would say that if you're not familiar with left-wing media, you really should watch left-wing media and get a sense of what they're saying, because you want to hear they're saying stuff like this. This is what this guy believes. This guy believes the best case scenario is that if you're running for office, if you're a politician, if you're in any way involved in any kind of political stuff in which you want people to believe what you say, he thinks that the best strategy to accomplish this is to close the mind of the people that are listening to you so they only believe what you have to say and nothing that anyone else has to say. That to me is a twisted human being. This guy is f***ed up. Sorry to put it like that, but it kind of pisses me off. What a despicable, slimy human being. But that's a Democrat for you.
That way you can deliver them content that they like from people that look like them and talk like them. It is literally an extension of a propaganda machine over time.
Okay, so this guy is sitting here saying, this is a dig at conservatives, obviously, right? He's trying to say that, conservative white men, they only want to listen to other white men talk. I mean, now granted, I am a white man, but obviously that's not true. I don't think anybody hears something that Candace Owens has to say and says, oh, I can't listen to her. She's a woman. And she's black on top of that. Whoa, my goodness. She must be wrong about everything. I don't want to get my news from Candace. No, she's one of the most popular conservatives in existence. One of my very favorite conservatives of all time is Thomas Sowell. I don't know if this guy's aware of this, but Thomas Sowell is a black man. One guy that I know quite fond of is Larry Elder. Good man, ran for California state governor. I tried to help him out a little bit. I gave him a shout out on my channel here, talked about him, did a video about it. Didn't win the California governor's race. Not sure that was fair exactly, but let's just smoothly sidestep that subject. Then you've got Loza Alexander, who, by the way, I will be interviewing on Tuesday, so that video is going to come out shortly. That'll be quite a lot of fun. He's got the #1 rap song in the country. I think Bryson Gray's rap song just popped into the #1 spot on iTunes as well. These are black men. There's no conservatives going, oh, I can't listen to that Loza Alexander song, the Let's Go Brandon song, because that was produced by a black gentleman. I can't listen to that. You're a moron, dude. Look at his glasses, are exactly the kind of glasses that I just got in order to make fun of leftists. I put them away, but I got the white ones. But I mean, you're just your absolute typical slimeball Democrat. The point is, there's plenty of conservative black people. There's plenty of conservative women that we all love. Ann Coulter, we all love. We all listen to them. We don't dismiss them because they don't look like us, you dick. This a-hole is sitting here trying to take a dig at conservatives for being bigots, and he's talking about how Trump's platform is going to create a propaganda machine. Again, that's what he's on. That's what MSNBC is. You're the one involved with a propaganda machine, not us. F off. All right, next bit.
The problem with this is all of it distorts what is reality. People will then go there for their news.
Oh, that is a beautiful irony, isn't it? That's a beautiful irony. A leftist saying that conservatives are the ones distorting reality. Leftists are sitting there talking about how black people are so oppressed in America. They're talking about it doesn't matter how fat or skinny you are. Everybody's exactly the same as beautiful, no matter how healthy they are. We know all these things aren't true. Right? These things are absurdities. This idea that trans women are real women. Dude, trans women are not real women, all right? Hugely fat people are not attractive to most normal people. Black people are not oppressed in America. We're the ones distorting reality, sure.
Which will be shoveled to them by news outlets that are confirming their beliefs, which are largely false with a mixture of truth.
Now that is the biggest irony of all. This guy is on MSNBC, and he's literally lying to the American public right now. He's sitting there, and he's expressing these ideas that he has about conservatives that are all false, right? And I think probably he knows most of them are false. It's possible that he's completely delusional and he believes it, but he is misinforming the public. He's on a leftist propaganda channel, and he's propagandizing. He's expressing these leftist views that are completely distorting reality, and he's saying that it's the conservatives that are distorting reality. You know, there's this great danger of Trump's social media site spreading misinformation, and he's saying that this danger exists while at the exact moment spreading misinformation himself, right? He's expressing these false stereotypes about conservatives. I mean, he is maybe expressed like 16, 20, maybe even more lies in this one sitting, in this one interview. And at the same time, he's warning America that Trump's new social media app is going to spread information. You are literally spreading misinformation right now.
They will then go there to organize so that they can then facilitate information distribution to other applications, which will make it harder for them to police false and misleading information.
Yeah. Just the existence of Trump's social media site will saturate the nation with so much misinformation that they'll start spreading it to the other social media sites. Then how are they going to police it? Oh my gosh, this is this whole disaster. This is what they call demagogy, right? It's where somebody comes out and he tries to play on the fears of his audience. And in this case, I think it's even worse than that because he's instilling the fear. I don't think anybody even really thought that Trump's social media app would be that bad of a thing. It'd just be somewhere where conservatives go to chat. This guy's saying, oh, no, it's far, far worse than that. He's selling it in the same way that a 90s infomercial would sell you on a problem that doesn't actually exist. And that's really the point, isn't it? I mean, this guy is trying to get the internet policed, but he wants it policed in the way that he thinks is best by cutting out all the conservative talking points and promoting all of the leftist talking points because, otherwise there could be something like January 6th. And, that's obviously a massive lie. There was no insurrection on January 6th. These people weren't violent. But this is still a talking point on the left. I mean, propaganda. That's all this is. If you don't watch left-wing media or you've never seen left-wing media, I am very happy that I was able to expose you to it today because you think it's bad, it's even worse than that. All right, guys, well, I said at the beginning of the video that I was going to give my suggestion of what this new Trump Truth social media app might do better. Here's my suggestion. People like me who don't have a huge following on Twitter, and I think that users who have a much bigger following on Twitter, 100,000 followers, 1 million followers, this kind of level, they're going to be hesitant to switch over to Truth social media, even if they're a conservative, even if they have that principle, for two reasons. One, you don't want to lose all those followers. But secondly, you do also want to reach the left. You also do want to reach moderates. You don't want to insulate yourself where you're only speaking to conservatives, where you're preaching to the choir. You want to have that engagement. And Twitter's one of the few places that we can still engage. The left and the right can still engage together. So I think that people are going to be hesitant just to fully switch over to Truth and to abandon somewhere like Twitter. So my recommendation is this. Create an option on your app where when you create a post on Truth, you have the option to mirror it onto Twitter. So as you post any kind of a comment, any kind of a picture, whatever it is, onto Truth, then that also appears as a tweet on Twitter, right? If you had that option on the Truth app, yes, I know it may seem like you're helping the competition a little bit, but that would make the transition for people with like hundreds of thousands of followers, that would make the transition much easier for them. And they could also talk to people on Twitter who maybe weren't on Truth yet, especially people who are on the left or independents. And also, you want people to share both platforms at first because you do want people to go back to Twitter sometimes and talk about how much better Truth is. So I do think creating that option to be able to mirror any kind of post that you have on Truth, mirror that onto Twitter, that would be excellent. That would really help that app out. And I don't know what people think about that or what other improvements that they think could be added into the Truth app, the Truth site. So go ahead and leave your comments below. Hopefully Trump will read all of them because, he watches this show every day. No, he doesn't. I wish. All right, guys. Well, that is it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
The goal for all of us should be that one day things will be done neither because of nor in spite of any of the differences between us. Ethnic differences or racial differences, whatever they may be, that we will have total equal opportunity for all people. And I would do everything I could in my power to bring that about.